and welcome to a new unit, World War One. I know a lot of you have been really anxious to get to the World War, so I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to start. We're gonna do this. I guess I should technically change the title of this, and I will for you, um, to World War One and World War Two, because we're gonna do them both in one unit. However, given the nature of this type of learning, this remote learning, I will probably be giving you just short online quizzes instead of big tests because I think it makes it a little bit easier for you given the circumstances. I just messed this slide up, but I will fix it later because I know that it's going to bother many of you, including myself, if it is not centered. So I'll fix that later. Yeah, we're talking about a series of world wars. It's very common in world history to talk about World War One and World War Two as a single war, because it's really there's a 20-year gap in the middle, and most of the causes of World War Two are related to issues that stemmed from World War One. So it's really interesting how they connect like this. So let's get started. I'm going to do a general overview, and then you guys are going to have another Edpuzzle video to watch that does a really remarkable job of outlining how World War One started. So it's been this is 1920. This time, 100 years ago, they were having the conference that ended World War One. So we're about 100 years out from World War One. There's a remarkable YouTube channel called The Great War that does a complete chronological overview of World War One from start to finish. We're obviously not going to watch all of that. But the first episode, the Prelude to War episode, is really, really good. So I'm going to have you guys watch that, and I'm just going to do a really brief overview. You can watch this video at whatever speed you want and get it down in your notes. So you get some of these notes about how World War One started. So this is a modern map of Europe that you're seeing right here, really just to show you how much it's transformed since 1914. So what we're seeing, and I know you probably can't even tell here, we're seeing the ending of a lot of the big dynasties. Like Austria-Hungary will cease to exist. It will be separated. The Ottoman Empire will cease to exist after this war. And we're going to see a lot of different changing alliances happening here in this area that we call the Balkans. You're going to hear us talk about the Balkans a lot, and we're really talking about this peninsula right here and all of these countries that eventually became the former Yugoslavia, and now they're obviously not Yugoslavia anymore. Okay, so when we talk about causes of World War I, it's really important to understand that we are in the early 1900s. Europe is a little bit different than where we left it off. So we left off talking about Europe in an age of imperialism and an age of industrial revolution. And so that's important, to know that Europe right now is industrial and it's imperialist, and that's going to come in handy. As you can see, one of the causes is imperialism, so that's going to be pretty important. But with the rise of this industrial capability, we see an increase in military, we see an increases in alliances, we see competition, we see things that are really vital and fundamental to Europe being a powerhouse that's going to eventually have these complicated alliances that are going to cause war. The first cause we're going to talk about is militarism. So, as you can probably guess by the name, militarism is this glorification of military power, this constantly being prepared for war, this, dramatic increase in the amount of money that you're spending on war. And then what we're going to see is one of the major differences in why we call World War I sometimes the first modern war is because we start to see these developments, planes, tanks, poison gases, submarines. We're going to see a new type of warfare called trench warfare, and just really starting to see, instead of your traditional type of war, we're seeing really the first of the modern wars. And then basically this idea of mobilizing troops causing a domino effect. So once Germany gets their army, in Germany's case, their navy ready, then Great Britain's going to do the same in reaction to that. So that's really important about how these countries react to each other's increase in military spending. As Germany starts to spend more money on their military, so is England, right? Because this is competition. So this is an interesting graph because obviously I know it can be kind of overwhelming. I want to draw your attention to Great Britain and to Germany here. So look at the difference in military spending, even particularly for Germany, between 1908 and 1913, which is the year before the war starts. That is a dramatic difference. And the other country that you see that dramatic difference with is Great Britain, obviously. So incredible amounts of money that are being spent on their military, which is causing other countries to sort of panic and then also spend that much money on their military as well. Okay, alliance is a big one because this is one of the fundamental reasons why tensions rose in Europe in the early 1900s. So we're talking about an increasingly complicated set of agreements, if you don't know what an alliance is, basically an agreement of peace or agreement to support another country. And as these alliances become entangled, we're going to see war break out. So what are the major alliances you should know? This one is called the Triple Entente, and it's going to be really fundamental. It is the alliance of Russia, Britain, and France that forms in the years leading up to World War I. And then the other alliance is going to be the Triple Alliance. Okay, so these are sometimes pretty oftenly confused because their names are so similar, but these are the two major alliances that are going to transform into the two different sides of the war. So the Triple Alliance will ultimately become what we call the Central Powers, and then this one will become the Allies. So that's important. Okay, another word you're going to hear all the time, especially in the next video, is the Balkan powder keg. So there's a lot of words there to unpack. Basically, you have to know what the Balkan Peninsula is. So let me show you really quickly. This is the Balkan Peninsula. Over here is the Black Sea. And over here is the Adriatic. Over here is the Adriatic. And over here's the Med, as in Mediterranean. So really, really key location here in Europe. This is modern-day Turkey. So you know what this city is right here, Istanbul, right? I'm sure you're all singing that song in your head right now. Okay, so what we're really going to see the tensions is what with this orange country right here, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and their fight with Serbia. And then Serbia is going to be really well allied with Russia because they're both Slavic people. And actually, that's going to lead to why the Serbians want to retake Bosnia, because Bosnia is also Slavic. So hang on. So when we go back to talk about this powder keg, we're talking about an area. If you know what I'm talking about here is a gunpowder barrel. That's what I mean by a powder keg. This is a metaphor that there's so much tension that it had literally become a barrel full of gunpowder, and all it would take is one spark, and it would all go up in war. And ultimately, that is what happens. There's one event that causes the entire war to happen as a result of these increasing alliances. Another word you're going to hear a lot is something called Pan-Slavism. And let's kind of break this down. We're talking about Slavic people who are Russian, Serbian, Bosnian, people who make up what is eventually going to become Yugoslavia. And we'll see that they basically want to have one country where all the Slavic people live, and that's kind of what they're fighting for. And so if you're wondering why Russia, which is a big powerhouse country, would ally with Serbia, a really tiny country, it's because of this desire to support their people. So that's important. And that will become even more important as we see how the war breaks out and which countries end up on which side. And Austria-Hungary is going to end up with Germany, and really they're just trying to take over more control of the region. See, I need to clear these off. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now you're seeing, like, this is a political cartoon of, see, I just can't get rid of the other ones. All right, whatever. Okay. What you're seeing now, though, is a political cartoon of Balkan trouble at the boiling point. And then this is just another political cartoon about how alliances can kind of cause a domino effect and eventually cause war. Back to this picture, though, this is not a powder keg. They're sitting on like a pot of water that's boiling, and they're trying to keep everything in. And I don't know how much you know about chemistry, but that's not going to work, right? That will eventually explode. Okay, so just another, you don't have to write this down, but just another graphic to illustrate alliances. So the blue countries form the Triple Alliance. The red countries form the Triple Entente. And then the Balkan Peninsula is also involved. The Ottoman Empire is also involved. That Ottoman Empire, the one that conquered Constantinople in 1453, it is now 1914, and they are still running, at least for another 5 years, and they're going to be done. Okay, let's talk about imperialism and nationalism. These ones will go pretty quickly. So imperialism, if you remember from last unit and from the unit we did right at the end of the first semester, imperialism is when a stronger country takes over a weaker country. And as you know by now, European countries, after the Industrial Revolution, have gone and created colonies and overseas empires to make their resources stronger and to basically gain more money. And now what we're seeing is a competition resulting in land grabs. Basically, these countries want to acquire more land. As you can see in this political cartoon, this is England with its hands kind of all over, right? And so this desire and competition is going to cause territory disputes, and it's going to cause a lot of increasing tension. And then the final one is nationalism. And I think nationalism sometimes gets overlooked, but in reality, it's not just patriotism. Nationalism is not as simple as of patriotism. I know on the slide I called it an extreme form of patriotism, but really it's this feeling of national superiority. And that feeling of national superiority in Europe in 1914, and then eventually also again Europe in 1939, is going to cause a fueling of hatred, a fueling of military. Okay, thanks, Siri. I don't know why I keep activating Siri accidentally, but you know, fun times. Okay, so yeah, it's an extreme form of patriotism that causes feelings of superiority, and then eventually it's going to cause things like pan-Slavism, right? Things where Slavic people are fighting to preserve their national identity. You have Germany fighting for the belief that Germans are superior, right? In the desire to create this German state, and that's going to be really important in World War II, right? When we're talking about Hitler and the rise of his ideology of German superiority. So you can imagine that these strong feelings, if they're extreme enough, can be a motivation for war. Okay, I'm going to end it right here. And then later on, we will revisit some additional slides on kind of the spark that causes this to occur.